Okay, Earth Science peeps, a couple troubleshooting things that I have been addressing for some people. So here are a few of the common issues I'm seeing. The first is if you have any units listed in columns B through D here where I'm highlighting. Say you decided to put in degrees Fahrenheit here, or the humidity percent. What you will notice is it will make your graph unusable. For example, this is day 1. Under day 1, I have the temperature without units, and I have the dew point and humidity with units. And if I look at my graph down here for day 1, which would be right here, my dew point and humidity values are gone. And they are missing, and that is because the units were put in. And we cannot have two different types of units on one axis. So what we did was we put units in our legend and made sure that this axis was just a value-based axis, meaning that anywhere on here is a value between 0 and 100. The units for that value, whatever it represents, you can determine those units using the legend. Okay, so watch what happens. Once I remove the units, if you watch my graph, it's going to change. And now I have the values here. So the number one issue I'm running into with some students is having units typed in this portion. If you do, you're just going to click it and delete the units, keep the value in. All right. That's the one issue. The second issue I'm seeing is some people are not getting any values down here on the x-axis. And there's a few things that might be happening. First, you might not be highlighting in column A. Maybe you only highlighted B through D and you get a graph that looks like this. So what you want to do is you want to make sure your data range here is between A1 and D15 or whatever your last column is. Now this is tricky to just plug in here. Okay? You could go with some of the suggested. If you do decide to click a suggested value, do not go past column D. Like J would encompass the entire graph, the entire data table, and we don't want to do that. So the best bet is to really just delete that graph and then just highlight the correct information and insert your chart. Another common thing that's happening is people are getting a different graph. And that's because it automatically goes to whatever your last graph was. Make sure that we are choosing a line graph. All right. And the final thing that I'm seeing was brought up from some of Ms. Javi's class and students. I'd like to thank her and them. Is this use row 1 as headers and use column A. Apparently, we are seeing some graphs pop up and look like this. And that is because the boxes are not checked to auto-fill your headings and your axis titles. Your headings and your titles would be days and temperatures and dew points. Now you can go in and input this all manually, but the best bet is on your chart editor, which is pulled up by just clicking the chart. If you double click it, your chart editor pops up. Customize gives you all the side things you can customize, but if you click setup and you scroll down to the bottom, we can now use row 1 as a header. That gives us a nice legend up here, and use column A as our labels. And that then provides us our days and our graph. Do not forget you do need to add in a title for this y-axis. The best way to do that is you click on customize. You go to chart axis and titles, and we click on the chart title portion here, and we want to actually change the vertical axis title, and we want this to be called value. And we press enter. And that's because this y-axis really just represents any value between 0 and 100. The units for that value you're going to look in your legend, because each line has a different unit. And many times we don't graph multiple units on one graph, but in this case we're comparing two items that have different units. We're really comparing three items, but only two of them have different units. So that's the majority of the questions I've fielded in terms of troubleshooting. Hopefully one of yours was on there, but if not, feel free to email Miss Javi or I, and we will happily address the issue. All right, stay well, friends.